Okay. My guest today, Michelle Tennant Nicholson, is co-owner and chief creative officer of Wasabi Publicity, a PR firm who represents global nonprofits, causes, and people who make a difference. Michelle calls herself a storyteller to the media, spinning news stories with notables like the Wall Street Journal, Good Morning America, NPR, Time Magazine, Forbes, Fox and Friends, and many other top media venues. She's also an award-winning author and speaker who enjoys paddling, mountain biking, homesteading, and van lifing with her husband, Shannon, and dog, Iris. Thanks for being here, Michelle. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I am so excited because we are talking about creating your annual theme, which is something I've done since 1996.
I
And so
know.
I'm so excited.
That's awesome. Yes. So Michelle and I have been friends for many years, and I'm very grateful to her. She has introduced me uh, to human potential work through Landmark Worldwide. She has really introduced me to powerful work that has required me to go through my discomfort zone to get to a place where I feel powerful in creating my life, and also where I can empower or help empower and guide others to create their lives, create lives that they really feel great about and in which they're thriving. So Michelle has really been a force in my life, and I'm really excited for y'all to hear from her and excited for this conversation. And as Michelle mentioned, typically it is the discomfort zone that is the theme. And since it is this episode is releasing on the 30, I believe it's the 30th or the 31st. Let me just check that.
Thanks for such a wonderful commentary
Oh
on
yeah.
how I've impacted your life. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Since this episode is airing on the 31st, I wanted to bring Michelle in because, as she mentioned, she's created her annual theme since, what did you say,
Since
1999?
1996.
1996. And actually, I've been doing this with Michelle for the last several years. And we do it actually together. Either the two of us or our husbands join us some years. And I think that exploring this theme today in the context of the discomfort zone, because it can be really uncomfortable to commit to a goal or a theme. And I know I hear from my clients, Michelle, that they tend to be able to start strong, but finishing strong is a challenge.
Right.
So let me start off my first question with, when I say discomfort zone, when it comes to creating your annual theme, creating goals, and finishing strong, what comes up for you?
Well, it's all about risk. So I'm going to tell a story about my mother, my 88-year-old German mother. And if I go into a German accent, that's just part of it, you guys. Okay. So around the year that I started creating those themes in 1996, I was also doing personal development coursework, which you had just mentioned. And I started to go do whitewater kayaking and rafting. And it was part of what I was trying to create that year for Around Adventure. So I wanted to create adventure. So my mother starts to freak out that I'm doing whitewater activities, right? And she actually asked me in a phone call, I'll never forget it. And she said, Michelle, I don't understand why you do such dangerous things. Why do you do such dangerous things? And I said, without a beat, I'll still remember, Mom, we do not take these risks to escape life, but rather to prevent life from escaping us. And that to me is the discomfort zone. It's the area of life where we can really savor the juice of life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story. And I really love when you impersonate Oma
Well,
in her
Oma
German
sounds like that,
accent.
as you know, you've met
Yes.
her. So she sounds
Yes.
just like that. So, still has that accent.
That's great. It's great. Yeah, and I love your wisdom in what you just said, that, risk taking allows us to live life fully.
Yes, exactly. So for me, the discomfort zone is embodied by risk. So, and then, you're mostly alive if you're taking a risk. Speaking to everybody right now on this podcast is a risk, right? Because that's what gets the heart rate pumping, and we get
Yep.
kind of excited, I mean, I
Yep.
was that little girl in grade school, Catholic grade school in Louisville, Kentucky. I always got picked last for kickball. Like, I was that poor child, right? Little chunky monkey, like getting picked last. So for me to like turn into somebody who does adventure sports for fun on the weekends as a weekend warrior, that's odd. Like, what happened there, And
Mhm.
without all the personal development coursework in my master's degree in human development and all of that, where I really learned to appreciate where risk comes in from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can get into that if you want to.
Mhm.
But that's really like the juice of life, and being present is doing something that's exhilarating.
Yeah. Yeah. And what kind of commitment does it take to do something that's exhilarating? I mean, that's the thing, right? It doesn't just happen to us. Although I think sometimes in humanity we can get resigned and wish and hope that something exciting happens to us or for us. And when we think about, creating our themes or picking resolutions, I don't love that word, resolutions or goals, it takes something. Quick pause so I can tell you about something that's been described, not by me, but by real paddlers, as life changing, brain changing, and in one case, which is my favorite, Justin, a participant, told his youngest brother who just graduated from high school that he should just skip college and take this course instead. It's called Mental Agility Mastery, or MAM, my 8-week program that helps you regulate your nervous system, calm fear, and show up to the river and your life with way more steadiness, clarity, and joy. But don't just take my word for it. Sean also wrote, "You've given me a gift to share with others that's literally saving lives." Kim said ma'am helped her feel more steady and joyful on the water. And Catherine said the community has been inspiring, motivating, and one of the greatest gifts she's gained. People talk about better sleep, better boundaries, better digestion. Yes, really. Less brain fog, more confidence, morning routines that actually feel good, and epiphanies that ripple into every corner of life. And one participant said something that I think captures the whole spirit of MAM. "I've learned tools I use every single day, not just for paddling, but for living." So if you're tired of spiraling, second guessing, freezing up, or feeling like your mind is working harder than you're paddling, come join us inside Mental Agility Mastery. You'll get practical tools, an incredible community, and a whole new way of showing up for yourself on and off the river. Because you're a Discomfort Zone podcast listener, you get a 20% discount. So go to mindbodypaddle.com/mental agility mastery and use code POD20 at checkout. That's mindbodypaddle.com/mental agility mastery and use code POD20 at checkout. Thanks, and let's get back to the episode.
It really does take something. I want to, a recent book that I just read was by a gentleman named Michael Easter, and it's called The Comfort Crisis. He's the
Mm,
contributing editor to Men's Health magazine. He's basically, in his book, I'll just give you, if you don't want to read it, I'll just tell you what it's about. So he's basically talking about, get off the couch, head outdoors, put your phone away, and
yeah.
occasionally push your comfort zone. And that's going to lead to a less stressful and a more fulfilling life. But and it's kind of trending. People talk about it, and my Japanese international PR client talked about it. Was this, have you ever heard of Misogi?
No.
Okay, so Misogi is a Japanese Shinto practice. You're going to love this, Anna. It's a practice of ritual purification by washing the entire body. So
Mm,
it's related, basically, it's about transformation. It's about shedding old habits and beliefs and embracing a new, more powerful version of yourself, right?
mm,
It's about doing something so tough once a year that it shapes how you live the rest of your 364 days. And,
cool.
as we've been creating, one of my new things for the next year is traveling in a van away from my home. So we can get into that, but that's really my misogi. So I think that when we look at our annual theme and what we're doing, I think it's really important to look at that motivation or the game behind it. Like,
Mm,
what's the game that you're going to put at stake for yourself so that you actually stay involved and you stay activated and interested in your own life, right? Because I think that in
right.
our, one of our first world challenges is becoming complacent and becoming bored. I think a lot of people are just running around bored.
Mm, mm. Yeah. There was something you said that I wanted to hang on to. This is why I'm glad we have an editor that you said in there. Um, yeah, I think staying engaged in our lives, and that's the thing, to stay engaged in our lives. It seems like for some, I can already hear, like, even in the back of my mind, well, shouldn't that just be natural, like to stay engaged in our own life? It's our life, And so when you're talking about gamifying, I remember Clay Wright in his episode, he talked about the theme was like gamifying your paddling so that you stay engaged in the learning process and you stay stoked on growth in kayaking and going for, goals. And so I love that. I love that idea because it is really powerful. So, can you tell us more about like how you do that for yourself in picking a theme and like for your year?
Yeah, I'm going to make it really easy. It is, I wrote my master's thesis on the art of aha. Okay.
Mm,
And so I interviewed and researched the way that people come about epiphanies in their life as part of my master's degree requirements. And I wrapped it around because I'm a publicist and try to make things pretty easy for people and takeaways and whatnot. I thought about the noun of life, right? What is in the sentence, because I'm also a wordsmith. So in a sentence, the noun is really important, right? It is the pivotal piece of the sentence. And what is a noun? People, places, things. So if
mm.
you just take your annual theme and then ask yourself, people, the people that I want to hang out with, places, where do I want to be, the things, what things am I going to put in place or let go of that will actually have this come about. Though that's an easy thing that everybody can remember to really have their year be powerful.
Yeah, and you know what I think is one of the most powerful things you just said that people often don't consider? Because we'll often think about, okay, I have a New Year's resolution or goal. Let's just say a simple, like a common one, like I'm going to get stronger and go to the gym, which is actually one of my themes. My theme this year is strength. And so you think of the time that you need to add to go to the gym, the investment in a personal trainer, all that, like the things that you need to do or add at the same time. In order to add something, we need to let go of other things. And I think we can be really resistant. And I think sometimes that is why folks struggle with reaching their goals, because there's that give and take. It's not just about doing something new and adding, it's about what do I need to take away. And I love the book 10x is easier than 2x, I think it is, all about when you really want to go for something, you act like big, like to 10x your life, that you actually need to let go of 80% of people, things that you do in order to focus on the 20% that's going to get you to your goal. And
I like
that
that.
can be daunting. Like that's uncomfortable to think about.
Yeah. So I pulled together on that note, right? So let's talk about the people, places, things. I love what you just said though, because I think it's true, right? So first thing you need to ask yourself is, who are you spending your time with? And that can be very daunting, because sometimes the people we love the most are not they're not going to be moving us forward to those particular goals that we have in the year. There's a quote by Jim Rohn, who's Tony Robbins' mentor, that says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
Mm-hmm.
So, I love my mother. Speaking of my mother, right? I love her. I speak to her every day. I call her at lunch, or I call her right after I get out of the gym, right? I teach a class at by the way, if you want to come to classes, like
Thanks.
I'm there, I'm in Fletcher. You can come. Okay. And then I call her. Today she just went off on a negative rant, and I was like, I'm done. I was like, I love you, have a great day. you know so I didn't want to, because I knew it's a morning. I'm creating my day. I want to make sure that what's going into my head is positive and moves me toward the goals for today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, you can't control what's coming at you, but you can control what you listen to,
Yeah.
and how you're actually interacting with that. Okay, the second thing, places. So research shows, and if you follow Dan Buettner with the Blue Zones, we all love him, right? The secret to longevity, what he says, has less to do with diet or even exercise, and more to do with the environment in which you live, social and physical. So the places, right? And they all at Landmark, they have this old saying, you have 2 tongues and one's always lying. And so they're talking about the tongue in your mouth is always lying, but the tongue in your shoe is never lying. So wherever you show up is where you really want to be. And so if
Mm.
you want to transform something, make sure that tongue in your shoe is at the right place, that where what you're saying out of your mouth, right? I think Gandhi said the secret to happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do is in alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm always looking for that, like, okay, I'm creating this for this year. Okay, what is out of alignment? What do I need to get into alignment?
Yeah. Yep. Which is another way of saying, what do I need to add? What do I need to let go of? Because anything that, and it sounds a little harsh, but okay, a lot of folks are into paddling on this, listening to this podcast. When I read that book, the 10X book, they have us do an exercise where we go back and we write out times in our lives in the past where we have 10x'd. So one of those times is when I was podiumed at the World Freestyle Championships.
Sure.
And when I think about what I did to get there after college, I did let go of 80%. Like, I didn't hang out with my college friends. I went and, got myself into raft guide training, and then was hanging out with a completely different set of people. And then even at the rafting company, I let go of just hanging out with people because I wanted to kayak, and I put myself with people who were kayaking all the
Yeah,
time. I even paid, I think, a friend to like run shuttle for me when I wanted to go kayaking and couldn't find anyone to go.
I love that.
Right. And so, if you're listening and you have goals, think about, or resolutions, and they're important to you, think back to a time in your past where you really did something big for yourself, and think about what you added and what you gave up. I thought that was a really good exercise because it made it real, and it also was like, oh, I've done this before, I can do this again.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And, one of my favorite authors, Toni Morrison, said, if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down,
Mm,
right? So choose the tools that truly serve your purpose and growth, right? So people, who do you, like Anna, you're talking about, right? Who's going to be around you to really support you to be at the podium, right? And then places, where do I need to be, right?
yeah.
And then things, right? So when we're talking about things, these might even be your smartphone, or different rituals, or structures in place.
Yeah.
I want to say that, when I was creating adventure, that brought me to the whitewater community, which brought me to you as one of my teachers, because
Mhm.
that's how we really met as I came to the Nantahala Outdoor Center when you
Mm.
were actually teaching,
Yeah.
right? And I felt like, because you had been on the world's stage, and you had podiumed, at Worlds. I just thought I was meeting a celebrity. I didn't get really shy around celebrities. I had met a lot in my life, but I was dumbstruck around you. I just was like, oh my God, this is Anna. This is the Anna Levesque in person, right? I thought you were going to just like rub off like all this good whitewater juju, and I was just going to become like, this amazing paddler. So, one of my favorite memories about our time together was when I went with you to Costa Rica, and it was your husband, my husband, the two of us, and you took me to the jungle.
Yeah.
And I want to just reflect on that, like the future that you create. And in 1996, when I looked at my college roommate at the time and said, you know what? I really want adventure in my life. We just gotten out of a landmark workshop. And I said to her, we were driving in her car and there was a whitewater rafting commercial that came on. 2-for-1 rafting this weekend, West Virginia, right? Fayetteville, da, 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 right? I think it was, I can't remember which outfitter it was now. I think Rivermen, maybe Rivers, no, Rivermen. And we went and we had a ball. And I looked at her and I said, I want to learn how to kayak. I want to become a raft guide. And she
Mm.
goes, you're crazy. You already have a job, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And I had a good job too in Cincinnati, but that's all. I could just feel it in my heart. Like that's what I wanted to learn. And so I made it happen. I did not go to Worlds, right? For sure. Just a weekend warrior, right? But man, has it brought so many beautiful things in my life.
Yeah.
Friends like you. I'm no longer the kid who gets picked last at kickball. I'm actually in
Right?
front of the spin class, teaching the hit class, the one in charge. Surprise, surprise. I'm mount. It also brought my husband, right? We mountain
Right.
bike, we kayak, right? All these things. And Costa Rica, the jungles, right? So it hasn't only brought me that theme for 1996, but for the
Right.
rest of my life. And I can look back at a full life at adventure. That's the kind of themes that we want to create, the themes that keep on giving.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
Because the
was wondering
answer is
when you were
never
gonna mention Shannon in there because I was like, yeah, you met your
well,
hubby
yeah,
whitewater
and not,
kayaking.
I remember when he told me he had done the Narrows, the Green River Narrows 300 plus times. I mean, my heart beats still. Like there was the other guy I had dated the week prior had swam in an eddy, and I'm not saying anything about men swimming in an eddy. It's fine. We all swim in the eddy, but Shannon looked a little more attractive that week because he was
Oh my
not
god.
swimming in the eddy.
Oh my god. Okay, no comment from me.
Right. No, because Anna has definitely seen me swimming in the eddy a lot. Where she's screaming, "Paddle
Oh,
harder!"
that's
God.
oh, come on. Okay, we'll not go there. Um,
Well, you were my coach. It's appropriate.
yeah, I don't think I've ever well, that's not true. I have told people to paddle harder, but
No, I'm thinking about
that's
that
too
one time
funny.
that Lila, you and I were on, was it Wilson's?
Wilson, yeah,
And then
yeah.
I can't remember, but I mean, you had a good point, right? I can't even remember. I had some bad habit. Everybody listening, look, if you want to do adventure sports, get a coach so that you don't form bad habits first, right? If I only had anything to
Good
do over
advice.
again, I would have hired a coach early on to really learn proper strokes, right?
Mm.
Instead of, right? So I think that in that moment where you were telling me to paddle harder was maybe you were saying paddle straighter or paddle with
No,
more
I
upper
remember. It was
body.
to get through the holes at the bottom of some of the drops. Yes, I remember.
Is that what you remember?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so I mean, but
That
those
was
are
a
some of
fun
the.
day though.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
all of the trips that I've taken with you and the, being with women, like that's another thing about, the people, right?
Yep.
So when you're
Yep.
around people who push you, then that's when you really thrive. And that's that's when we're talking about, when Michael Easter is talking about us being too complacent in our modern society, and then
Mhm.
the term of misogi, right? Like, so you're really pushing yourself and you're growing. It's when you know, I think one of the things you said to me once on the river, you were teaching a bunch of women and me, you said that fear is part of what makes it so special, right?
Mhm.
It's like to have that respect for the fear. And that's when we're looking at what makes us grow and feel happy and confident, and like we're, on the forward trajectory of life. It's when we're facing our fear and having proficiency in actually dealing with that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, and that brings up a good point because if your theme for the year or your goals scare you a little bit, that's a good thing.
It is.
Like, you don't want goals or a theme that feels easy because that's not where the growth area is. Like, the growth area is in the discomfort zone. And so, yeah, picking something that know you'll need to put some effort into, that's a little scary. You might yeah, and by scary, it could be fear of failure, it could be fear of looking bad, it could be um any other, type of fear. I mean, in adventure sports, we do face the fear of mortality for sure. But there are other fears that we face. So,
100%. And, when you feel it in your body will let you know. So, as like in I like to do training with heart rate zones,
mhm,
something that I really experienced as a teacher of spinning classes and indoor cycling classes. So when, my heart, when I know that I'm actually approaching risk, and my heart will elevate naturally. I've done so much heart rate training that I can actually sit. At one time, I was getting here's another little short story. A nurse came to the house and she was at the kitchen and she put me on an EKG machine. And I thought, well, this will be a perfect opportunity to do heart rate games, right? Because I'm seated and I can then actually see on the machine if I can raise and lower my heart rate by just having that relationship with my brain.
mm.
And, a few minutes into it, she looked at me and she goes, I don't know what you're doing, but will you please stop? Because I was making my heart rate go up and down just
Yeah.
like I was in a class. So it goes to show you, right, how you do have that control over your body. And there's a really interesting TEDx. I don't know if you've seen it with Amy Cuddy, but she does
Mhm.
I love the Wonder Woman pose. So, a lot of times when I'm about to face fear, I'll strike a Wonder Woman pose. And so it's it's standing tall with your feet apart, hands on hips, your chest lifted. And I think about like confidence and strength and empowerment. And one of the things that she talks about in her TEDx, her TED talk, is your body language shapes who you are. And so if we think about that and we think about our heart rate and what our body is telling us, that it's, when you adopt a posture, we now know that that posture says more about our behavior, our thought process, how our hormones are firing inside our body, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive confidence. So if you think about power posing, right? So when we're looking at these annual themes and envisioning what we're going to do next year, well then what are you doing with your body? What does it look
Mhm.
like? What shapes, what sensory, like what are you smelling, tasting, hearing? Because this is how we experience our environment. We're
Mhm.
animals, right?
Yeah.
We are a dance with the environment, whether you're sitting or whether you're kayaking, biking, dancing, whatever.
Yeah. There's so much that we can go into. And one of the things that I want to touch on, because it's come up twice in my mind now listening
Okay.
to you, is, yeah, from the yogic Ayurvedic perspective, right? Ayurveda is very focused on digestion, having a optimal digestion or a well functioning digestive system as one of the routes to health. Right. So
Yes.
because we have our gut microbiome, the gut brain axis, there's a lot of science now that shows it's a two-way street that we have. Yeah. So there's more and more science coming online about that. And it's so we have known for a long time that we have to digest what we eat, what we taste. So that's one of the five senses, right?
Hmm.
We have to digest everything that comes through the five senses.
Yes.
So whether we have to digest what we hear, we have to digest what we see, we have to digest what we touch, what we smell, like you just mentioned. And so having that, it's just another way, another
I love that.
perspective on what we've been saying. But like, so where do you want your energy to go? Because it takes energy to digest food. It takes energy to digest experiences, or like if you're watching television, it takes energy to digest what you're taking in through your senses. And so again, making choices that, to give up or to add things, anything that you're taking in with your five senses, because as you just said, that's how we experience the world. As human beings, we experience the world with our five senses. And whether we're aware of it or not, and this is the other thing I wanted to bring up that you're pointing to, is self-awareness. Cultivating self-awareness is so important. It's one of my 8 spokes on my mental agility mastery wheel that I go over in mental agility mastery 8-week course, actually coming up next week, if anyone out there is
Oh, it
interested,
sounds
because it's really,
amazing.
yeah, it's really about building self-awareness and then going through the spokes. So when you have self-awareness and you're aware of when something you're taking in through any one of your five senses no longer aligns or does align, then you can shift to either increasing or decreasing, your experience or with that thing. Yeah.
It's really interesting what you're saying about the digestion. You'll be happy to know that just yesterday I had soup and thought of you about, oh, I'm actually eating something warm. It's cold weather outside and I need to have
Yes.
something warm. So it's something eating with the seasons is something that I
Yeah.
learned from you, Anna. But the other thing I bet that people listening, and I wonder, the other thing that you're digesting, and it's often you're not aware of it on your phone, your TV, your radio. One of the things I always say is the stories that you consume you.
Mm.
And I really want people to think about that because it's very people aren't present. So what are you actually your algorithms
Mm-hmm.
feeding you and
Right.
that you have to digest from these algorithms? Oma called me one day, so my mother, Michelle, this Jenna Jameson, she is on a keto diet and she lost 80 pounds. So she's trying to get me to get present to the keto diet and this Jenna Jameson. I was like, who is this? Right?
God.
you know? And so I'm thinking, so then, I think I did a hangout with my husband. I was like, who is this? Mom is like, her algorithm's feeding her this woman. Why is that so familiar? And then he writes, it's like, that is a porn star. That is an
Right.
adult porn star. And I said, and so I was like calling my mom. I was like, don't click on that. Why, Michelle? Why shouldn't I click? I was like, don't click on any information about that woman anymore. Because I could just see my very Christian elderly mother getting
Oh my
bombarded in her
God.
algorithm with adult porn star information. So I had to tell her, and she was shocked that people could see naked people on the internet. I mean, she said, even my grandchildren can see this.
Oh God. Oh my.
And I said, yeah. So just be careful what you click on because the click on, what you clickbait on it becomes part of what you need to digest. I mean, it's a really good
Yeah.
point. We're not
Yeah.
even present to it,
Yeah. It's
right?
true. Yeah. There's so much.
There's so much.
I know. And that does make it a challenge, because it could be easy. It's much easier and it takes less effort to just click on whatever YouTube pops up next,
Totally.
whatever TikTok the next thing is, and just like easy to just live your life the same way you did yesterday and get the same results, right?
Yes,
Or to live in your by you, live in my we all have them. We're human. Our habit patterns that we, our coping mechanisms that we created as kids, the stories that we told ourselves about the world. And then it's a lot less energy to change or get curious about those than it is to just keep replaying and
that's right.
reliving. And so that's why it's important. If a theme kind of scares you, that's good, because it means you're stepping out of those, or it will at least give you opportunities to step out of those habit patterns.
Yeah, so to get present to those habit patterns, and then you get to choose,
Yeah.
right? You may decide I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that, or you may say I'm going to recreate that. I'm going to recreate that into a game for myself and create something new. Um, it was so funny. You talked about Clay. I met Clay when I became a raft guide at the church in Fayetteville. And there was a place where all the kayakers, all the cool kids were meeting and whatever. And this guy Quigley that I was hanging out with took me over there, and I was in with like all the hot paddlers of the day. And I asked this. I was new, so I asked some stupid question about rolling. Okay, and I think when we left, he goes, "Don't be asking questions like that in front of everybody," right?
Oh. Oh.
And then of course the little, grade schooler who was picked last in last for kickball came out,
Mm.
right? And I had to in that moment say to him, I said, "Well, what better place to ask than that group of people that's actually forming the future of Whitewater?" He's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that's a good point too." Right? I
Mhm.
was in the right place with the right people, and he didn't Clay answered it. He's like, I don't even
Mhm.
remember what it was, but I remember he gave me a great answer, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that's good." Right? So, it's also like who you're listening to in the moment of like, "Oh, don't act like that or be that way." Well, that was Quigley's opinion. Hi Quigley,
Mhm.
if you're listening. I love you. So so, it's quite possible he's listening to your podcast, Anna.
It's
All my
possible.
friends from Fayetteville. Hi.
Yeah, but it's true, because I think, as someone who I also was bullied as a kid, and tend to be sensitive about
Yes.
how I look to other people,
Sure.
and tend to, yeah, like concern myself with that, which again takes energy.
Yes.
At some point, you know, like even to start this podcast, well, I have to put myself out there. I mean, I've had people, say what they say about me, and then I have a choice. Well, like you said, who are you going to listen to? Who are you going to put energy into? And even, and more importantly, what is your heart calling you to do? Right? Or your, that self-awareness. You could think about it as heart, as a strong desire, as a dream you've had. Are you letting that pull you forward, or are you letting what other people who aren't even in your circle, what they're saying about you?
That's right.
You
And
know?
you were courageous at a time. Now it's a little different for young women, right? But I'm
Oh, for sure.
55, right? So,
Yeah.
when I started in my 20s when I was kayaking, I was like 29, 28, 29. We didn't have women to look up to. It was all, very male dominated. And I remember that you were that beacon. And I know you've shared many times about the reason why you chose the career that you did was to empower women.
Yeah.
And you did it, right? I mean, because you were shining so brightly inside that passion where you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm feeling this particular way. I wonder if other women are feeling that way too. And
Mhm.
so then it opens up a space for the rest of us to be authentic, and to really create for ourselves. And I think that when we are authentic and really leaning into that fear space, or I really want to create this next year and it scares me. That that's the juice of life. That's where the happiness zone is too.
Mhm. Yep.
Right?
Agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've talked
Yeah.
about really I've loved our conversation so far. Let's
Me
get into
too.
a little bit of more tactical in terms of
Okay.
what people can do to create their year. So, Michelle and I, I love your like people, places, and what was the last thing? Sorry,
Things
it's
like a noun.
things. Yeah, yeah.
Just like, a noun is a people, places, or things, right?
Right, right.
That's how you'll
A
remember
noun.
it. Yep.
Like that. So, with people, so Michelle and I, like to do this work of creating a theme. And yeah, so do Shannon and Andrew. And so you go into it with the people.
That's
So
right.
find people in your life that support you. And if, yeah, that maybe want to do it with you. And if you don't, or you could choose to do it on your own, which is fine. Do it with yourself. That's
Well,
great.
like what you and I went to. We went to landmarkworldwide.com, and I think every January, they've got one coming up in January. You can just go do a course with them on creating your year. I think
Oh,
I did
yeah.
mine last year, was on a Saturday. It was open to the public. It was really great, right? And then you get to create your life from the future backwards.
Right.
Right? So
Yes.
then what you kind of visualize for yourself December 31st, looking back on the year. So my theme for next year is going to be flourish. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I see, touch, smell, hear, and taste on December 31st, 2025?
Mm-hmm.
Then I break that. So then I'm like, what that looks like for me. And for me, because we're traveling across country in our new Sprinter van, our new Winnebago,
Yay.
which we only purchased because Hurricane Helene devastated our homestead dreams. So
Right.
people are always like, wow, that's resilient. I'm like, well, and we even said yesterday, my husband and I, we were in Lake Lure, and he said, oh, it'd be so great to hop on our bikes and go on Weed Patch today. I
Mm.
said, that's true. I really miss Weed Patch. It's pretty devastated. However, we wouldn't have this van if Weed Patch hadn't been devastated.
Hmm.
We
Weed
would have
Patch is
never.
a biking trail for those of
Oh,
you
sorry,
not
everybody. It's
familiar.
it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a yeah, it's a mountain biking trail that has a lot of switchbacks and really really fun when it does reopen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not open right now because of the hurricane, and but that's how the adaptation or looking at things in context to your goals, right? So my last year goal was joy, and he got kind of excited about joy, and he's like, I said, we need to constantly be in joy and recreate ourselves, and he goes, like, recreate. And then we just looked at it and we went, oh my goodness, here we are a year into that theme.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a Sprinter van, hello, to literally recreate our days every day geographically, to be around new people, places, and things, but then
Yep.
also to recreate. So next year, the other thing is like, well, looking back at the year, so then, okay, by Q1, right, quarter one, if you're a business person, yay, entrepreneurs out there. So Q1, what milestone do you want, right? And then,
Right.
but you're doing it from the other way. So you're actually starting with Q4, which will be like, December-ish, and then you're going to go back to the end of summer, early fall. Well, what milestones will you have created to realize what you're seeing on the 31st? Then
Mm-hmm.
you're back to, Q3, Q2, Q1, and you're working backwards. So then you're completely laid out for the year. And then
Yep.
that way you can look at the year progressing and then say, okay, I need to adapt or change my people, places, things, or I can just create a new game. It can be inside the same context of your theme, but just the particulars might look different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a really easy way to kind of look at it. And it's like, okay, well, step one, Anna knows I always write things down. In fact, I think I might write a Psychology Today I contribute over at Psychology Today for people who don't know. And I thought this, I'm so jazzed up about this, Anna. I'm going to write an article, right,
Mm.
about this, right? So
Yeah, it's awesome.
I was laying it out before we got on the podcast. So start with your future vision, then do the people, places, things. So people is building the right relationships, right? Putting those in place, designing your environment. So that might be, decluttering or creating a calming corner at the house. Where do you get creativity? I know Ann and I love to go to coffee shops. Maybe you want to host an event so that you're actually bringing those people together, whatever, right? And then tools. Like, what tools have you thrive? Right? So,
Mhm.
or fly back, really going back to our Toni Morrison, if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. Well, what's weighing you
Mhm.
down right now? And I had some volunteer service that was really weighing me down. And I'm very grateful to have let those down where, my generosity wasn't met with gratitude. And so time to move on.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's my little, like, creating a theme, working in a box from backwards. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's really important. And I think that, holding ourselves accountable is important. And again, that is a discomfort because it could be, again, fear of failure, or it's really easy. So I like the idea. And I think I did hear it might have been in the Landmark Forum. Something, like someday is not a day on the calendar. There's 7 days in a week. And, I hear people, someday I'll come on a trip with you, or someday I'll, redo this, or someday when I
Someday I'll
am,
do a cleanse.
yeah, maybe someday when I'm stronger, someday when I have more money, someday, and that's like wishing and hoping. That's going through life wishing and hoping. Whereas if you actually use your calendar, I like to use my calendar. When I
I do
put it on
too.
my calendar, it helps to hold me accountable. And like you, it's not to say that it's not about beating yourself up if that day comes and you said you would have reached a certain goal by that day. You still want to look, well, okay, maybe it doesn't look how I thought it would, but what does it look like? Like, what have I accomplished?
Right.
What, and then you can make a new choice, because when we make a choice, it doesn't mean we have to make a choice for like ever. Like, you make a choice, and if you don't like the outcome, or the outcome isn't quite what you thought, then you can choose again. And so when you think about accountability, I really love the metaphor of the riverbanks. A lot of you have heard me say this. So I just love it so much how, the river exists because of the boundaries of the banks, because of that discipline that, you know, directs the flow of the water. And having accountability, having those riverbanks will help direct the flow of your attention, your people, place,
Yeah.
and things towards what's important to you. But
Yeah.
without that, then it's just kind of like too easy to kind of the water to just dissipate, or for your goals to just dissipate, you know? So,
I really, and a lot of people will say, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to fail.
yeah.
Well, failure is feedback. That's all it
Mm,
is.
mhm.
So whether you're, I love the bank analogy, right? That it keeps you focused and accountable. And we all swim on the river, right? Swimming is part of paddling. It's
That's
just
right.
part of it. No,
Yep.
no paddlers, we're only in between swims is a saying
Yep.
that we all say, right?
Yep.
And that's the same thing with life. We're only
Right.
in between failures. And failure's
Right.
just feedback. That's all right, right?
Yep.
So the uh the thing that I love is when we look at failure as a feedback loop, then you can then look at your milestones that you're trying to achieve for the year. And then maybe it's not quarter one that you've achieved that milestone, but maybe you've achieved it in quarter three. Or maybe
Mhm.
even you carry it over to the next year. Doesn't matter,
Mhm.
right? You've created it. But a lot of times people say they can't like, well, I'm just, I remember in high school, my college, or excuse me, in college in Chicago, my college roommate gave me a fortune teller gift. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Like,
Mhm.
was going to tape it and whatever, like, and, but I just, had fun with it, more like a party parlor game than really taking it seriously. That, what she said came to pass. But you
Mm.
know what? I don't think it was because she could see the future. I think it was the power of suggestion.
Mm.
Because if we think about it, right now, I could start to visualize what I'm going to make for dinner. Isn't that part, the creative part? And
Mhm.
then we get out the ingredients and then we actually make the dinner. That's all we're doing here with our annual theme. That's all we're doing by reaching out into the future and working backwards. And by the way, that um, you know, reverse engineering your best year is what I did at the Landmark. They had an event last January and I just loved it, right? Because I was like, okay, what pictures am I going to hold of myself in my hand? What do I look like? What am I experiencing? What am I hearing? What
Mhm.
kinds of podcasts am I listening to make this? So for example, we completely started consuming on YouTube some van life. Helene happened. Our homestead was devastated in Lake Laura. So that dream of retiring there, okay, that's definitely put on hold. As soon as we decided to buy that Sprinter van and decide, okay, we're just going to chase mountain biking meccas around uh, the globe, um, that's when we just started to pull in all those people, places, and things. And like,
Mhm.
instead of watching the news in the morning, we watch this a YouTube channel and some, what other couples are doing on their travels, and we love the whole. I know the Holcomb, Peter and Kathy Holcomb are not related to your husband,
No.
Andrew
But
Holcomb, but we've really
they're
been.
related to Abby, who's been on this podcast, who has her own Winnebago as well, which is
Oh,
pretty
nice!
cool. Yep.
Shout out to Abby and her
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So
They're great.
that would be another. I'm now fangirling him. That Peter Holcomb. I was like, this morning I was watching his video, just going, he's so sweet, like so agreeable. What a nice person. I would
Mm.
like to meet with him. I would like to, hang out with him. Like that's the kind of visualization,
Right.
then all of a sudden you find yourself inside some type of campsite or whatever and you're like, "Oh my god, is that Peter Holcomb over there?" I mean, I know that it sounds hokey, right? And it sounds cheesy, but that's all we're doing on a daily basis when we're making our meals. So why not
Mhm.
create your life in the same way? Put the
Mhm.
ingredients together and see what you want. Go after it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Uh, I want to get to rapid fire questions. One last thing, though, I want to say about what you just said is about failure being feedback. Failure is also a clue for you to look at, okay, am I really aligning my actions, words, thoughts with
Yes.
my goal? Do I need to realign, you know, or what's been missing? Or again, what do I need to let go of? So again, it's in our all or nothing attitude kind of culture. It's like,
Mm.
oh, I didn't hit my Q1. I should just give it all up. Like, who cares? I just suck or whatever. And so instead, just taking that and being like, okay, time for a realignment, feedback, realign, you know?
I love moving from feedback to realign. And I don't know, if people are really wanting to be motivated to really stick with something. I highly recommend that movie Free Solo.
Mm,
That was, Alex Honnold, I
Honnold.
think is his
Yeah.
last name. Right, it chronicles his ropeless ascent of El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. One of the things that's interesting about that whole experience in his documentary is he undergoes a functional MRI scan, and it reveals that his brain, his amygdala, has minimal activity in it. And it could be the reason why he associates, he doesn't process fear like the average person. So a lot of times when we are failing and then we have to realign, we're not thinking that we have a different body than somebody else does.
Mm.
And how can we be present to our
Mhm.
body? Right?
Yeah.
I'm terrified of heights. However, I like exposure therapy, so I will go be in something with heights so that I can work on my heart rate games. I can work on my fear center. I can start to work on, managing my breath around the cortisol uptick in my body, right? So, but I have a different body than somebody who's been on the world podium like you. And so these are the journey, the process of like, okay, it's all right, Michelle. This is what I tell myself. It's all right. You couldn't walk at the age of 38, right? The
Mm.
first time my back seized up, I was 24, right?
Mhm.
So I have a really severe scoliosis in my back that causes me chronic pain. And I know that about myself. And I can have compassion for myself when I have to
Mhm.
just take it a little slower, or I have to ask myself, well, I can't do it like that man or woman, but I can do it like I am, right? And I
Mhm.
can, and I'm still doing it.
Mhm.
So I just wanted
Yeah.
to add that a little bit so that
Yeah.
people have like, hey, I don't need to be superwoman. I just need to be me. All
Yeah.
right, rapid fire. I'm ready.
Love that. No, I love that. Just need to be you.
Just need to be
Exactly.
you.
Okay, rapid fire. These are designed to be answered in a word or a sentence.
Okay.
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 Morning ritual that sets you up for success.
20 minutes of cardio, strength, and then stretching. 20, 20, 20.
Nice. Love it. What's a non negotiable self care practice?
Learning something new every day. It's got to
Hmm.
be ongoing learning. So that and exercise every day.
Got it. Cool. What's a favorite motivational book or talk?
Oh, I'm quoted in a calendar. I kid you
Nice.
not. The only risk in life is living a risk-free life.
Love it. Love it. Okay. What do people get wrong about you?
I am they think I'm an extrovert, but I'm actually equal introvert. I spend most of my life as an introvert. I score evenly on those Myers-Briggs tests. So you think I'm an extrovert? Surprise! I'm actually an introvert.
Nice. Okay. Throughout the course of your life, have you thought of yourself as the underdog or the favored to win?
Oh, underdog. I pick last for kickball.
Well,
Give me a
that's
break.
true. Yeah. Okay.
Always
Okay.
underdog. Always last.
Okay.
Even when
Hard.
I podiumed this past year on my mountain biking race, I was like, "What?"
That's awesome. Okay. Hard moves in easy water or flooding.
Oh, hard moves in easy water all the
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. What's one word that describes your comfort zone?
Risk.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were going to say latte
Lots
because
oh,
that's
coffee.
you and I are both
Cafe.
latte people. Okay.
But risk is it's really, yeah, it's an expression of risk. Yeah.
Okay. Freedom through discipline or I do what I want.
Disciplined to do what I want. See, if you're
Yeah.
fully disciplined, you have all that freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah. Just like those riverbanks,
Yeah.
within the discipline of the riverbanks, the water flows and moves and dances. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. In one word, what do you hope your legacy will be?
In one word. Um Fulfilled.
Love it. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners, Michelle?
Well, I really, one of the things that we didn't talk about was my own journey with complex PTSD. And if
Mm,
somebody is listening to this and they feel like they can't because they've got some trauma in their background and is what makes them really different, or maybe what you're going through is some type of mental challenge.
hmm
um, I just want you to know that there's always help. And that's what I want people to know. I write on complex PTSD at Psychology Today because it's something that I've had to go through with my own life. And trauma changes your brain makeup. So we
Mm.
talked about the amygdala today. It
Mhm.
also changes your body, the body shape, the way the body interacts with its environment, just like a tree changes and adapts to its environment. And
Mm.
maybe there's some type of invasive species that's affecting that tree. You are the same in your environment. So I just want people to know that there's always support, there's always help around you. Just ask
Mm.
for it. You have to ask for it.
Got it. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Pleasure.
sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah, my pleasure.
important. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. I really enjoyed this
Me
conversation. I
too.
hope those of you listening got some good stuff from it for, creating your theme, creating your best year yet. And yeah, thanks, Michelle.
I
Just
would
appreciate you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much. I would love to, if somebody's gotten value out of today's conversation, you create something amazing for yourself next year, however many years into the future. I don't care. I want to hear what you've created. Write to me at michelletennant.com. It's just my name. Write to me and let me know, you know what? I never did this, and then I did this after that conversation with you and Anna. That would just make my day and my year.
Yeah.
So,
Ditto.
yeah. Let us
Ditto.
know that what you've created for yourself, because if you don't have a community, we're your community.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks,
I love
Michelle.
you.
Love you too.